well, yeah, ridiculous overkill. I mean, even at 700 amps, given enough airflow, it should be no problem to handle for shorter benchmarks. There's a lot of other cards that opt to use the UP9512, which only goes up to 8 phases. The MP2888 goes up to 10 phases. The Galaxy Hall of Fame card uses an Infineon controller that also goes up to 10 phases. And then the 2080 Ti Strix, as well as the 2080 Ti Matrix, which those two cards share the same PCB, those also use an. This one's standard ridiculous overkill. If you just get more more of the MP86956s. So, 360 amp power powering your GDDR6, more than enough. Absolutely no concerns there in delivery either, and the MP2888 voltage control up there. Now then, things that I think are far more interesting than the VRMs on this card. I guess let's start off with the memory chips. So normally, when you buy a video GPU, you get whatever memory chips happen to be on the factory floor that day. And what decides what memory chips are on the factory floor that day is whatever memory chips NVIDIA decided to ship out. Because normally, when board partners buy the GPUs, they'll get the GPU and a set of memory chips with that GPU. Which basically means you're going to end up with whatever NVIDIA decides to ship. As NVIDIA really doesn't care about what kind of memory overclocking headroom, EVGA is kind of going out of their way to either hold back on using their supply of GDDR6 that they get from NVIDIA and just filling out the other cards with other memory chips, or they're buying GDDR6 directly from, buying GDDR6 from some kind of vendor that is always going to be Samsung. And the reason why this is important is the Samsung GDDR6 is consistent, which basically means there are Micron cards out there which do very good memory overclocks, but there's a lot of Micron cards out there where the memory overclocking absolutely sucks. So with the Samsung memory, you're pretty much guaranteed at least, good memory overclock. I don't want to be overly generous, but the Samsung GDDR6 should most of the time hit 1200 or higher offset. Easily higher. I would be very surprised if it didn't do higher, but I don't want to be, I don't want to hype this card up more than I already will with memory overclocking. But there's a lot of things EVGA is doing here that should make So one thing is the guaranteed Samsung memory chips, which all generally clock better. The other thing EVGA is doing that I'm a huge fan of is a significantly beefed up output filtering setup for the memory VRM. One of the things I do to NVIDIA cards these days a lot is just whack a bunch of capacitors onto the memory rail. I think it was a GTX 1070, where I first noticed that if you just added a bunch of capacitors, the memory overclocking suddenly got way better. Okay, it was a Micron GTX 1070. It sucked. And then I added a bunch of capacitors and it stopped sucking so much. And I had a 2080 Ti Founders Edition to play with, and that's exactly what I did. I whacked a bunch of extra capacitors on the memory rail, and the card basically picked up some plus 75 megahertz offset. This card right here should have that taken care of from the factory, which is great. This has Samsung memory, and this has significantly better output filtering for the memory compared to other. It also helps that this card will have memory voltage control, which is another easy way to get a bunch of extra memory control as well. GDDR6, the Samsung GDDR6, definitely scales with memory. The memory overclocking on this thing should be absolutely killer. Now that we're on the back of the card, it's also worth mentioning all of this. So, not only have they significantly improved the output filtering on the memory VRM, they've done the same for the vCore. Now, on the vCore side, I actually don't know how much impact this is going to have. I have a sneaking suspicion it's going to have very little, but I've never tried adding this many multi-layer ceramic capacitors to anything because I'm not a pick-and-place machine, and this would suck to do. So, yeah, on paper, this should help. In practice, it would make, but it is definitely, can just look at all of the cards. None of them have this many multilayer ceramic capacitors on the output of their VGA. And the reason why this is significant that it's multi-layer ceramic capacitors is because multi-layer ceramic capacitors have a far superior efficiency response compared to normal aluminum polymers or tantalum polymers or any other kind of sort of electrolytic type capacitor, right? Because they're still electrolytics, they're just solid. So, yeah, better at filtering out high-frequency switching noise from, say, the GPU core. But admittedly, like, it also is affected by distance, and these are rather far away from the GPU core. I'm not sure how much you then again, you also have just, like, transient response. Like, these would still also help with shielding over time. So when the GPU core has a lot of current and then little current, water current again, multilayer circuits will help that. They are fast. The issue, most of the time, the issue with multilayer circuits being used for like response is that they don't have a lot of capacitance. But EVGA is kind of solving that by just having so damn many of them. So yeah, it's just like that's the thing. Is like these are like if you add this many multilayer ceramic capacitors, I'd be very surprised if it didn't do anything. But I've been surprised by like I've done other things when it comes to adding capacitors to V4 VRMs. So yeah, I want to say this makes a difference, but I'm really not sure. It should, but you know, I would like on liquid nitrogen, I'd expect this to actually help a lot. On Ambient, I'm not sure that would be stressing the, you know, like the card would be pulling enough current to really make a difference. So the bulk capacitors, now this is an engineering sample card, and you can tell that this is missing, and there's stuff on the back of the card that's also missing. And that basically means that these capacitors you see right here, they're not final. These are not the ones you'll actually see on the retail cards because these are tantalum polymers from Panasonic, and the retail cards are going to be on Panasonic series capacitors, and those are SP caps, whereas these are bulk caps. And the difference is SP caps are aluminum polymers, and Panasonic makes some very, very low ESR aluminum polymers. And the reason why we want low ESR is essentially it makes the capacitors more efficient, and it makes them better at doing their job. I mean, Panasonic also makes capacitors that go all the way down to 3 milliohms, but those are ridiculously expensive. And I don't think I've ever seen them used on any GPU ever because of how expensive they are. Like, I guess at this point, everybody's going to be wondering, what's your lifespan rating? Well, it's only $2,000 105 degrees Celsius. So, they're not high endurance. Considering that this VRM is probably going to be running basically at ambient, I'm not worried. Okay, I think it's, and this is actually something worth noting, is a lot of the very low ESR capacitors just straight up don't come in high endurance series. Like the 3 milliohm ESR capacitors, you can't wipe them at 5,000 amps. They just don't. They also don't make them in high voltage ratings either. So these are basically capacitors that is just like they're optimized for raw performance above sort of any kind of consideration for long-term, you know, high temperature endurance. Because they're still going to last forever if they're at like 50 degrees Celsius. They're just not going to last forever if the VRM was super, super hot, which it won't be because the VRM is very efficient, right, and really well cooled. So, yeah, like I don't see a problem with the capacitor selection that EVGA is going for. I mean, I kind of wish it went for the 3 milliohm ESR ones, but at the same time, I completely understand that they didn't, because those are, as I said, like ridiculously expensive. And I think with everything that this card is doing, it's just kind of like, okay, you gotta stop. Plus, there's like a pile of multi-layer ceramics on the back. You know, shaving off a couple of milliohms on the bulk capacitors probably wouldn't make a difference considering what the back of the card looks like. Let's move on to other cool features. We get triple 8-pin power connectors, which normally I don't think is that cool. The thing with this card is the triple 8-pin power connectors allow this card to ship with a max TDP of 520 watts. So when you max out the power slider in EVGA Precision, for example, this is what the power limit is going to be for the card. The reasoning for that is 150 watts, 150 watts, 150 watts, and 70 watts. Now, if you remember a lot of my past videos, I say that these power connectors can have a lot more power than 150 watts. And that's true. The issue is, NVIDIA won't allow their board partners to ship cards with power limits higher than 150 watts per power connector. Or at least I think that's the situation. Because the way NVIDIA power limits are actually implemented is there's not really like a full card power limit, it's a per power connector power limit. Which is why this card can have a 520 watt BIOS.
I think I broke something.
Is in spec, and still in spec. And also the per power connector power limit is the reason why we have all of these MOSFETs and all of those. That, and also this choke, and that choke, and these guys, and those guys, and... Well, I didn't notice any in this area, so I'm not sure if this is power balanced or not. Basically, per power connector. Where, theoretically, it's possible... end up in a situation where one power connector So that's bad because, you know, effectively it reduces our power part. Like, you have your theoretical 520 watt power limit, but if you're trying to pull 200 watts from one of the connectors and 100 from another one, you're effectively limited to, I'm going to screw this up, 470 watts, right? Instead of the full 520. So, you need all of the power balancing to make sure that at any given time, there's 150 watts across. Like, if you're maxing out the total power limit, that it is actually shared crossover among all the power connectors. And the way these MOSFETs do that is basically they reassign phases from one connector to the next connector on the fly. So, you know, if, like, we have one phase, there's going to be different currents flowing through each phase. You know, reassigning they're putting the same amount of power for each power. So that's what all the power balancing is for. Now, if you're on liquid nitrogen, there's going to be an extreme overclocking BIOS that's going to appear on some forum. I'm not sure where. Actually, no. I have a rough idea of where it will show up. And that BIOS will remove such silly things to constrain us as power limits. Because on liquid nitrogen, NVIDIA cards get very, very powerful. For example, 1080 Ti's will average 800 watts on liquid nitrogen, easily. It will average easily 800 watts. Well, Tin from EVGA always actually releases a really cool guide for overclocking these that usually mentions the average LN2 overclock power draw. And at least for like 980 Ti's, it was like 1100 watts average or something like that. For 1080 Ti's, it was like 850 in his guide. So for these, we'll definitely find out what exactly they pull. Either way, with 3 8-pin power connectors, we should be more than sorted because each of these connectors can do at least 360 watts. If you have, you know, a halfway decent power supply. Now then, other features, we have a USB-B micro. That's the wording. And that gives you monitoring capabilities for the card over USB, which is pretty awesome. Then here we have an EV bot header, so if you have an EV bot, you can use it to control voltages on the card, which is, I mean, at this point, like, I wonder how many people there are who are still active in extreme overclocking and also have EV bots. Those things are pretty rare. EVGA has been making them for ages. Above that, we have a 4-pin fan header for some reason. Up here, oh, then we have the, I assume that's for the OLED display that the card comes with. So, that'll allow you to monitor things like CPU clocks, FPS, power consumption voltages, like GPU, memory volts, text voltage, 4.8 volts, and 12 volts. It'll also allow you to monitor temperatures across the 12 different PCB, as well as the thermal paste monitor, which is a sensor that goes what some minus 60s. So, you know, goes pretty far below 0. It doesn't go all the way it doesn't go as low as a K-type. So personally, I would still, if I had one of these cards and I was taking it on liquid nitrogen, I would still glue a K-type thermocouple to the back of the core, because that's actually a really good way to figure out if your thermal paste failed. Because even if you're at like full pot and, you know, temperature sets like normal temperature sensor that this one won't work at that point. And regular 1080 Ti's and 2080 Ti's, they won't register anything at that point. The temperature reading is going to be completely whack. But what I do is I glue a K-type thermocouple to the back of the core, because if you monitor your delta through, like, from the beginning of your session and throughout your session, if your delta suddenly just jumps way up for no apparent reason, you know your thermal paste just right. And I guess with this, if the card doesn't immediately crash, I would assume with this thermal monitor, the thermal paste monitor on this, it would actually start showing, you know, potentially like minus 50 degrees while your LN2 pod is at minus 200. And if that's happening, you know there's a problem anyway. So it might not be that much of an issue that it goes super low, but personally, I like to be able to thermometers for all of your reviews and everything. Oh, and also the OLED display will allow you to display. Above that, we've probe it. There, that's what you called it. Essentially, this is a hookup for digital multimeters. Super convenient. Fits snugly onto the digital multimeter probe. Well, there's like a connector that goes in there, and that then terminates in connectors for digital multimeter probes that fit snug, so you can hook up your multimeter and you can just set it to voltage and you can monitor whatever voltages you feel like from your multimeter. So in combination with that OLED display, you actually have a very easy time monitoring like 2 voltages at the same time without, you know, needing 2 multimeters. So it's pretty neat. Also, this is a lot better than there's a lot of extreme overclocking cards out there which basically just give you like voltage read points on the PCB itself. Like, they don't give you any kind of hookup. It's just like solder bumps or something. And it's like, it's nice that they thought about adding that, but at that point I may as well just solder wires to the back of the, like, capacitors on the back of the card. At least from my perspective, it was like, well, if you're not going to give me real hookups, I can just, and I'm going to have to solder to the card anyway. I may as well just solder directly to the control, right? Like, at that point it doesn't make a difference. This is actually really convenient. So it basically eliminates one of those things that you would have to, you know, like on a lot of other cards you'd have to do soldering to get these kinds of hookups. Here it just comes with it, which is awesome. That's kind of the main reason for the Kingpin cards. It's just like, you know, these are cards where you can buy the card, insulate the card, maybe add the extra K-type thermocouple to the back of the core if you're like me, and then throw it on liquid nitrogen. You don't have to do anything else. That's it. You don't have to worry about soldering anything, modding anything, removing resistors, bridging anything, you know, bridging resistors, whatever. Don't have to do anything like that. Buy the card, install the extreme overclocking BIOS, insulate, run. Next, we get a triple BIOS switch. Since you are going to be expected to, like, you know, if you're going to be installing the extreme overclocking BIOS, you will have to flash the BIOS on the card. And if in the BIOS process, BIOS flashing process, anything goes wrong, well, having 3 BIOSes makes it that much harder to break your card, right? Like, instead of having to break just 2 BIOSes before the card is terrible, attempts to not screw up. And then we get some LEDs for indicating which voltage regulators are actually running. So NVDD is our core VRM, so if there's anything wrong with the core, that won't light up. If the memory is burnt, if this doesn't turn on, that won't light up. If the text rail doesn't turn on, like one of these, that won't light up. 1.8 volts, you get the idea. 1.8 volts is monitored, and 12 volts is also monitored. So essentially, if there's some kind of issue causing the card to fire up, and one of these LEDs isn't lighting up, well, you know, you can skip a whole lot of troubleshooting with that. Well, you can skip a good chunk of troubleshooting. Not a whole lot. That one, like, if your keyboard is running, then it's like, why aren't they running? You might get something like a 5 volt rail running, to hunt down at that point, but still, simpler than having a card that has no display output, you know, no display, and you're sitting there like, well, I guess we're going to be taking a multimeter to it and trying to figure out why it's not displaying anything. Well, I think at this point I've covered everything on the front, so let's move back to the back. And this being a, you know, engineering sample, well, we have LEDs for the triple BIOS to indicate which BIOS you're on, but this being an engineering sample, it's missing some features over here. So we have a voltage offset switch, which I'm not sure what exactly it does. but what exactly the offset settings are. But essentially, the idea is that you can offset your core voltage by a certain amount. This can be very useful with 2080, well, on 1080 Ti's, this would be very useful because 1080 Ti's on high core voltage don't want to start up. Though I assume since this card you'd be setting your voltages in software, that shouldn't be an issue. I guess you would also be able to use this to override any software voltage limitations. You can just go above them by a certain amount, like whatever the offset gives you. So that's potentially useful. I'm not sure I would ever use this myself, but it's here if you feel like you need it. Then we have memory load line settings and GPU load line settings. Now, the settings, if I remember correctly, are basically reduced droop and then droop completely turned off. You kind of have to play with them because in some situations you may find that having a little bit of droop, all of the droop is actually better than having no droop because droop exists for a reason. And I'm not going to go into explaining why it exists, but essentially on Liquid Nitrogen, it's really obvious if you set up your load line settings wrong on Liquid Nitrogen, because basically you can set a certain voltage and adjust the load line, and you're going to start maximum benchmarks instead of finishing. It's that obvious. At ambient, that doesn't really happen because at ambient you're not so temperature sensitive, but on Liquid Nitrogen it's really obvious when your load line is set wrong. So that pretty much covers everything. The RTX 2080 Ti Kingpin Edition. The most, complete, as I said, I think at the start I said this is basically a perfect RTX 2080 Ti. And I stand by that. It does everything. I can't think of a single thing. Well, no, I can think of one thing I would try. I would really like to see this row of multi-layer ceramics replicated down here, because those are for the memory power, right? And I just have to wonder, could you make the memory clock better if there was more multi-layer ceramics down here for the memory chips that are over there instead of just the chips that are up there? It just kind of seems kind of imbalanced. Also, you can't put any over there without changing the arm back, and that would potentially have, negative consequences for core clock. So you don't want to mess with that part. But I do wonder, what would happen if there was more of them? Could the memory overclocking be even better? But yeah, other than that, I can't think of anything I would change in this card. It's that good. The only card that I can, out of all the 2080 Ti's that I've seen, the only one that comes even close to this is the Galax Hall of Fame. The thing with the Hall of Fame cards is they don't have a lot of the things that this has, and they're kind of more awkward to get your hands on the extreme overclocking utilities for. Whereas the Kingpin cards historically have their BIOS, just kind of placed on extreme overclocking forums, and if you're and you know where to look, you can get that BIOS. So that's always been kind of my that's the really awesome part with the Kingpin editions. So that's it. Watching, like, share, subscribe, leave any comments, questions, suggestions down in the comment section below. If you'd like to support what we do here with Gamer Nexus, there's store.gamersnexus.net if you'd like to pick up some merch like mod mats, shirts, glasses, and if you'd like to support us directly, there's the Gamers Nexus Patreon. There's links to both down in the description below or in the comment section, or in both. I'm not sure. Steve takes care of that. Anyway, I have a YouTube channel called Actually Hardcore Overclocking where I do a bunch of other overclocking related stuff. It'd be awesome if you check that out as well. And that's it for the video, so goodbye. We're going to be taking a look at the RTX 2080. So perfectly picked that I really wish I allow people to make Titans. But that's never going to happen.
Before that, this video is brought to you by Massdrop, PC 37 activated headset with professional grade Sennheiser voice canceling microphone. PC 37X headset provides audio and mic quality is critical, making for a convenient, high-performance solution for gaming or professional use. The headphones come with a detachable 10-foot cable for safe storage during travel, a standard 2.5mm plug, and soft foam for firm but comfortable fit over the ears. The PC37X headphones get apart with high mic quality, high-quality audio output. Learn more at the link in the description below.
Let's get right into it. There's just so much stuff to cover on this thing that it's really interesting that we need to get through. So then, starting off with I think is the less interesting part of this card because we've seen so many high-end RTX cards. It's always very similar. It's not necessarily the same thing, but it is very similar. You have a V-Core VRM that is split into two parts, normally with 6 power stages on that side, 10 power stages on this side. And the thing is, you know, some of the cards out there, they'll opt for like 8 power stages on this side. And, well, the Founders Edition goes to 7. There's a couple of cards that, there's one card that goes to 8, and then everybody else goes to 10 on this side, and then 6 on the other. Well, except Gigabyte, where Gigabyte goes to 8 on this side, and then 6 on the top cards end up with above the right side, right side, you can that's standard. We've got 1.8 volt rail and hex rail in this area. I'm not sure which is which because they both do, well, they're both similar regulators. They don't push a whole lot of power and they both kind of don't matter. Like, well, no, they matter in the sense that they would, like, if they were present, the card won't run, but they don't really do anything for overclocking. Hex rail is, well, hex rail sometimes works when you're on liquid nitrogen, but the 1.8 volts rail never does anything, because that's a supporting voltage for the GDDR6. Like, the only reason why you ever want to raise the 1.8 volts rail is if for some reason you're running like 1.8 volts memory voltage. But at that point, I'd expect the memory controller to die. So again, not really a useful, like not a realistic use case either. The 1.8 volts might also blow up the memory chips. The memory chips tend to be really, really robust, and it's usually the memory controllers that go first. Anyway, so yeah, it also powers things like now those minor rails. Somewhere in this area on the card there's going to be 5 volts regulated because of course these are smart power stages and they do not run at 12 or 3.3 volts. So power those. Pretty much the top level regulators on the card. Now then let's take go into more detail on the and memory VR. I think those are the ones that the only ones you really need to care about that much, even those aren't that special. So we have an MP2888 voltage controller for the V4 VRM, and we also have another MP2888 for the memory VRM. This is made by Monolithic Power Systems, so you know they make power stages, they make controllers. They actually make some pretty advanced controllers. So this thing is fully digital, it goes up to 10 phases, 5 megahertz switching frequency, which is way more than you're ever going to use because I'm not aware of any power stages or MOSFETs. You could probably find discrete MOSFETs that would do that. So it can go up to 5 megahertz, but EVGA is usually 400, which basically the switching frequency, it affects your output regulation for the VRM, essentially higher switching frequency. But the other thing is higher switching frequency can also impact the VRM. Power stages you're using the rest of the VRM design. That's why they decided to come out as 1 megahertz that breaking mode can prevent that by essentially burning off the extra energy of the body diode of the low. I'm not sure that they have this because I can't get a full data sheet. I was lucky enough to actually get efficiency boosts, so they support up to a 1 megahertz, which is 1 megahertz frequency. Well, we don't want to go above 1 megahertz because at that point these will stop working properly, and at 1 megahertz they're also going to be very inefficient. So that's kind of the limiting factor on the They also include built-in temperature monitoring, overturn protection, overturn protection, so basically everything to prevent the VRM from underestimating how much heat something puts out is a lot worse than overestimating it. So essentially with a lot of the other cards, there's a good chance that the efficiency could be high, which makes things look better. More than you ever really need to worry about. It's also worth noting that H2O 400 amps here is generous. In from EDG, their testing 2100 megahertz core clock and 8450 memory clock. The card would pull about 420 watts under 3D mark. So, you know, I guess if you overvolted your card a lot, and maybe hit 2200, you might be able to hit that 400 amps. But actually, not necessarily. You could get close to that, but you won't necessarily hit it. Either way, even at 400 amps output, this VRM barely produces any heat. Plus, that heat is spread across like 2 separate sections of VRM. So, yeah, this is going to run really, really cool. And it's going to run even cooler if you've seen the video of this card in the EVGA lab when it was running. This thing has a really elaborate VRM cooling system. Like, this thing's going to have no... Like, I'd be very surprised if this had issues with the 600 amps out. Because, you know, you'd have what? You'd have a slightly more than half of that, so let's just say like 45 watts on this side, and there's a massive heat sink on the VRM for this portion of the card. And then there's another really large heat sink on the other end of the card as well, so if you just put airflow over that, you should have absolutely no problem dealing with 68 watts of heat, so 600 amps output. The VRM here is ridiculous. So, well, yeah, ridiculous overkill. I mean, even at 700 amps, you know, given enough airflow, there should be no problem to handle for shorter benchmarks. There's a lot of other cards that opt to use the UP95 the MP2888 goes up to 10 phases. The Galaxy main card uses an Infineon controller that also uses 10 phases. And then the 2080 Ti Strix as well as the 2080 Ti Matrix, which those two cards share the same PCB, those also use an MP2888 in a 10-phase configuration. This one's standard ridiculous overkill. It uses yet more of the MP. So, you know, for that day. So what you decide what the memory chips are for that day, and the memory chips and video. When we're trying to buy the GPU, so with the GPU, with that GPU, basically you're going to end up with whatever you really have to do. NVIDIA really doesn't care about what kind of memory overclocking headroom out of their way to either like hold back on using their supply of GPU which is why I'm like, well, I'm not sure how much impact these would have. Then again, you also have just like transient response, like these would still also help with smoothing over transients. So when the GPU core pulls a lot of current and then suddenly very little current and then suddenly a lot of current again, the multi-layer ceramics will help out with that. They are fast. The issue, most of the time, the issue with multi-layer ceramics is for like handling transient these are, like, if you add this many capacitors, I'd be very surprised if it didn't do anything. But I've been surprised by, like, I've done other things and ended up surprised with when it comes to adding capacitors. So, I want to say this makes a difference, but I'm really not sure. It should, but, you know, I would, like, on liquid nitrogen, I'd expect this to actually help a lot. On ambient, I'm not sure that stress would be, you know, like the card would be pulling in strength to really make a difference. So the bulk capacitors. Now, this is an engineering sample card. This is missing, and there's stuff on the back of the card that's also missing. And that basically means that these capacitors you see right here, they're not final. These are not the ones you'll actually see on the retail cards, because these are tantalum polymers from Panasonic, and the retail cards are going to be on Panasonic.
I got sacrificed by Jake.
SX series capacitors, and those are SP caps, whereas these are pulse caps. And the difference is SP caps are aluminum polymers, and Panasonic makes some very, very low CSR aluminum polymers. And the reason why we want and it makes them just better at doing their job. I mean, Panasonic also makes capacitors that go all the way down to 3 milliohms, but those are ridiculously expensive. And I don't think I've ever seen them used on any GPU ever, because of how I guess what's their lifetime rate? Well, it's only 2,000 hours. So they're not high endurance. Considering that this VR is probably going to be I'm not worried. Okay, I think it's and this is actually something worth noting, because a lot of the very low CSR capacitors just straight up don't come in high endurance. Like the 3 milliohm CSR capacitors you can't buy them by now. They also don't make even high voltage things either. So these are basically capacitors that are optimized for raw power above sort of any kind of consideration for long-term, you know, high temperature endurance. Forever if they're at like 50 degrees Celsius. They're just not going to last forever if they're super hot, which it won't be because CRM is very efficient, right, and really well cooled. So, yeah, like, I don't have a problem with I kind of wish it went for the 3 million ESR ones, but at the same time I completely understand that they didn't, because those are, as I said, ridiculous. I think with everything that this card is doing, you gotta stop. Plus, there's like a pile of nuclear graphics in the back. Saving off a couple of million and the long Let's move on to other cool features. We get triple 8 power connectors. Normally, I don't think that cool. The thing with this card is that when you max out the power slider in the EDG table, for example, this is what the power limit is going to be for the card. And the reasoning for that is 150 watts, 150 watts, 150 watts, and 70 watts. And now, if you remember a lot of my past videos, I say that these power connectors can handle a hell of a lot more power than 150 watts. And that's true. The issue is, NVIDIA won't allow their board partners to ship cards with power limits higher than 150 watts per power connector. Or at least they think that's the situation. Because the way NVIDIA's power limits are actually implemented, there's not really like a clear power limit, it's a pure power connection. Which is why this card can have a 550 watt BIOS. The power limit is 150 is stagnant. And also this card power connector
Something.
those, and that, and also this go, and that go, and these guys, and well, I didn't notice it in this area. Power balance. Basically, because the power limit is power connector, you end
I
up
think
in
I
this really
broke
awkward
something.
situation where theoretically it's possible, depending on how like you are connected to the power limit, it's theoretically possible to end up in a situation where one power connector is pushing 200 watts and another one is pushing 100. And without all of the power balancing stuff, that would cause throttling or core clock. So So that's bad because, you know, effectively it reduces our power target.
Oh, for fun.
520 watt power limit, but if you're pulling, trying to pull out of the connector and put it into another one, you're effectively I'm going to screw this up. 470, right? Instead of the full 520. So you need all of the power balancing to make sure that at any given time there's 150 watts per call. If you're maxing out the total power limit, that it is actually shared properly among all the power connectors. The way you want to do that is design phases from one connector to the next connector on the fly. So, you know, if like we have one phase here that's pushing way more current than the other one, well, there's going to be different currents flowing through each phase. You know, reassign the phases so that they're all pushing, added up, they're pushing the same amount of power for each power. So that's what all the power balancing is for. Now, if you're on liquid nitrogen, there's going to be an extreme overclocking BIOS that's going to appear on some forum. I'm not sure where. Actually, no. I have a good idea. I have a rough idea of where it will show up. And that BIOS will remove such silly things to constrain us as power limits. Because on liquid nitrogen, NVIDIA cards get very, very powerful. For example, 1080 Ti's will average 800 watts when running on liquid nitrogen. Easily. It will average easily 800 watts. While Tin from EVGA always actually releases a really cool guide for overclocking these that usually mentions the average LN2 overclock power draw. And at least for like 980 Ti's, it was like 1100 watts average or something like that. For 1080 Ti's, it was like 850 in his guide. So for these, we'll definitely find out what exactly they pull. Either way, with 3 8-pin power connectors, we should be more than sorted because each of these connectors can do at least 360 watts. If you have, you know, a halfway decent power supply. Now then, other features, we have a USB-B micro. That's the wording. And that gives you monitoring capabilities for the card over USB, which is pretty awesome. Then here we have an EV bot header, so if you have an EV bot, you can use it to control voltages on the card, which is, I mean, at this point, like, I wonder how many people there are who are still active in extreme overclocking and also have EV bots. Because those things are pretty rare, because EVGA hasn't been making them for ages. Above that, we have a 4-pin fan header for some reason. Up here, oh, then we have I assume that's for the OLED display that the card comes with. So that'll allow you to monitor things like GPU clocks, FPS, power consumption voltages like GPU, memory voltage, PEX voltage, 1.8 volts, and 12 volts. It'll also allow you to monitor temperatures across the 12 different sensors on the PCB, as well as the thermal paste monitor, which is a sensor that goes into I think minus 60s. So, you know, goes pretty far below 0. It doesn't go all the way it doesn't go as low as a K-type. So personally, I would still, if I had one of these cards and I was taking it on liquid nitrogen, I would still do a K-type thermocouple on the back of the GPU core, because that's actually a really good way to figure out if your thermal paste failed. Because even if you're at like full pot and, you know, temperature set like the normal temperature sensor that this notebook will work at that point, and regular 1080 Ti's and 2080 Ti's, they won't register anything at that point. The temperature reading is going to be completely whack. But what I do is I glue a K-type thermocouple to the back of the core, because if you monitor your delta through, like, from the beginning of your session and throughout your session, if your delta suddenly just jumps way up for no apparent reason, you know your thermal paste just failed. And I guess with this, if the card doesn't immediately crash, I would assume with this thermal monitor, the thermal paste monitor on this, it would actually start showing, you know, potentially like minus 50 degrees while your LN2 pod is at minus 200. And if that's happening, you know there's a problem anyway. So it might not be that much of an issue that it doesn't go super low. But personally, I like to monitor the delta at really negative temperatures. But it is also kind of awkward because you need twice as many thermometers for all of your GPUs and everything. Above the OLED connector right here. Oh, and also the OLED display will allow you to display custom graphics. Above that, we find the EV bot. I mean, not the EV bot header, but a voltage probit header. There, that's what EVGA calls it. Essentially, this is a hookup for digital recorders. Super convenient. It fits I can just, and I'm gonna have to solder to the card anyway. I may as well just solder directly to the back of the core, right? Like at that point, it doesn't make a difference. This is actually really convenient. So it basically eliminates one of those things that you would have to, so like on a lot of other cards, you'd have to do soldering to get these kinds of hookups. Here, it just comes with it, which is awesome. That's kind of the main reason for the Kingpin cards, is just like, these are cards where you can buy the card, insulate the card, maybe add the extra K-type hookup to the back of the core if you're like me, and then throw it on liquid nitrogen. You don't have to do anything else. That's it. You don't have to worry about soldering anything, modding anything, removing resistors, bridging anything, bridging resistors, whatever. You don't have to do anything like that. Buy the card, install the extreme overclocking BIOS, insulate, rock. Next we get a triple BIOS switch, since you are going to be expected to, like, if you're going to be installing the extreme overclocking BIOS, you will have flash BIOS on the card. And if in the BIOS process, BIOS flashing process, anything goes wrong, well, having 3 BIOSes makes it that much harder to break your card, right? Like, instead of having to break just 2 BIOSes before the card is terrible, before the card is unusable, here you have 3 attempts to not screw up. And then we get some LEDs for indicating which voltage regulators are actually running. So NVDD is our core VRM, so if there's anything wrong with the core, that won't light up. If the memory is broke, if this doesn't turn on, that won't light up. If the PEX rail doesn't turn on, which is one of these, that won't light up. 1.8 volts, then you get the idea. 1.8 volts is monitored, and 12 volts is also monitored. So essentially, if there's some kind of issue causing the card to not fire up, and one of these LEDs is turned off, isn't lighting up, well, you can skip a whole lot of troubleshooting with that. Well, you can skip a good chunk of troubleshooting with that, not a whole lot. That would, like, if your VRM and your memory VRM aren't running, then it's like, why aren't they running? And it might be something like, oh, the 5 volts rail isn't running, which you might have to hunt down at that point. But still, simpler than having a card that has no display out, no display, and you're sitting there like, well, I guess we're going to be taking a multimeter to it and trying to figure out why it's not displaying anything. Well, I think at this point I've covered everything on the front, so let's move back to the back. And this being engineering sample, well, we have LEDs for the BIOS, so we can take the BIOS you're on. But this being an engineering sample, it's missing some features over here. So we have a voltage offset switch, which I'm not sure what exactly it does, but what exactly the offset settings are. But essentially the idea is that you can offset your core voltage by a certain amount. This can be very useful with 1080 Ti's, this would be very useful because 1080 Ti's on high core voltage don't want to start up. Though I assume since this card you'd be setting your voltages in software, that shouldn't be an issue. I guess you would also be able to use this to override any software voltage limitations. You can just go above them by a certain amount, like whatever the offset gives you. So that's potentially useful. I'm not sure I would ever use this myself, but it's here if you feel like you need it. Then we have memory load line settings and GPU load line settings. Now, the settings, if I remember correctly, are basically reduced droop and then droop completely turned off. And you do kind of have to play with them because in some situations you may find that having a little bit of droop or all of the droop is actually better than having no droop, because droop exists for a reason. And I'm not going to go into explaining why it exists. But essentially, liquid nitrogen, it's really obvious if you set up your load line settings wrong on liquid nitrogen, because basically you can set a certain voltage, then adjust your load line, and you're going to start crashing in benchmarks instead of finishing them. It's that obvious. At ambient, that doesn't really happen because at ambient you're not so temperature sensitive. But on liquid nitrogen, it's really, really obvious when your load line is set up wrong. So that pretty much covers everything on the RTX 2080 Ti. Does everything. I can't think of a single thing. Well, no, I can think of one thing I would try. I would really like to see this row of multi-layer ceramics replicated down here, because those are for the memory power, right? And I just have to wonder, could you make the memory clock better if there was more can't put any over there without shifting the VRM back, and that would potentially have consequences. I don't want to mess with that one, but I do wonder what would happen if there was more of it down here. Could the memory overclocking be even better? But yeah, other than that, I can't think of anything that I would change. It's that good. The only card that I can like out of all the 20 guys that I've seen, the only one that comes even close to this is the Galax Hall of Fame. And the thing with the Hall of Fame cards is they don't have a lot of the things that this has, and they're kind of more awkward to get your hands on the extreme overclocking. Whereas the Kingpin cards historically have their BIOS, kind of placed on extreme overclocking forums, and if you need that BIOS, then you know where to look, and you can get that BIOS. So that's always been kind of my that's the really awesome part with the Kingpin editions. So yeah, that's it for the video. Thank you for watching. Like, share, subscribe, and leave any comments, questions, suggestions down in the comments section below. And if you'd like to support what we do here with Gamers Nexus, there's store.gamersnexus.net if you'd like to pick up some merch like mod mats, shirts, glasses. And if you'd like to support us directly, there's Gamers Nexus Patreon. There's links to both down in the description below, or in the comment section, or in both actually. I'm not sure. Steve takes care of that stuff. So anyway, I have a YouTube channel called Actually Hardcore Overclocking where I do a bunch of other overclocking related stuff. It'd be awesome if you check that out as well. And that's it for the video. So goodbye.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another hardware news recap. The leading story for this week is Intel poaching distinguished engineer Tom Peterson from NVIDIA. This is a major news item. It's important for a lot of reasons, even if you don't follow industry people, because Tom has been an internal at NVIDIA and has made some pushes for things that consumers or media or partners have concerns, demands, or questions about internally. So NVIDIA is losing also a key engineer, and this is where Intel's building battle against the two incumbent GPU makers expand, because Intel has been already acquiring AMD talent, media reporter talent, and is now pulling people from NVIDIA. So that'll be our leading story for today. Before that, this video is brought to you by EVGA's Z390 Dark motherboard. The Z390 Dark is a flagship motherboard for Intel's unlocked done by overclock engineering team Kingpin and Pin to enable higher memory and CPU frequencies. The motherboard uses a unique rotated socket design to move EPS 12-volt cables to the right side, making cable management easier, and also sticks to 2 DIMM slots to improve memory, overclocking stability, and headroom. We previously analyzed the VRM in full and found it among the best in class in Z390 overclocking, and it also got rid of RGB LEDs. Learn more at the link in the description below. Quick GN store update first. We just restocked the blue beer glasses, so if you want one of the cobalt blue beer glasses with the gold tinted rim, store.gamersnexus.net. Pick them up in 1, 2, or 4 packs. Discounts as you go up, and for you if you want them. So NVIDIA losing a key engineer to Intel. Let me tell you why you need to care about this first. Tom Peterson, as I said, has been an internal advocate. Every company has at least one person who is a hub or that between corporate people at the company and people outside of the company. And that hub, or that conduit, is critical if they're good at their job, because they keep the rest of the company sort of slightly in check to some extent, or at least in touch with the audience. And as companies grow, they do lose touch with what the audience wants, because they don't care anymore when they're in a dominant position. NVIDIA losing Tom is on the exciting side. Intel has now demonstrated that it's serious enough to start pulling on talent from the biggest GPU maker in the space, and it is starting by pulling on someone who is, to our knowledge, a direct report to Jensen, or extremely close, if not. So that's a big move. That's a power play by Intel. And the upside of that is that NVIDIA desperately needs